Last Saturday, doing what I love doing in my garage, that is working on my troop carrier, I decided to have a little bit of a rant. But again, it's my complaint about traditional media when reviewing cars. It's 2024, that means 40 years that I've been exploring the world's most remote places in four-wheel drives, in association with the Overland Workshop. There he is. Howdy, howdy, howdy. Time for a rant. All these reviews on the new 2.8, all of them, every one of them, fantastic. And I say this is a 2.8 auto. It's so much better than the V8. The V8's old school. Oh, everybody's going, it's such a V8 killer. I see those thumbnails, V8 killer, and it bugs the crap out of me. Toyota has obviously influential with those magazines that promote their cars, advertise their cars. So the magazines want to say good things, and it is so typical of them to say V8 killer, because Toyota don't want people ordering the V8, they want people ordering the 4-cylinder. Here's the reality. The V8 in its standard form was 4.5 V8, underpowered and an underperformer in its standard form. But that engine was so detuned, and it was detuned because most people using the vehicle are in agriculture and mines. They don't need the power, they need the engine longevity, which the bad airbox design didn't help, but nevertheless, that was the idea. We as enthusiasts with the V8 would tweak it. And I did one on my previous troop carrier, V8 of course. I used a Torque-It module map, and I monitored it, and I think this is important, the performance by measuring and monitoring the exhaust gas temperature. You can get so much power out of a diesel engine, but if you let those exhaust gas temperatures go out of control, it will cook the engine. So you can't just modify a diesel engine and hope for the best. You do that, you'll blow up the engine, no matter what diesel it is. Turbocharged diesel engines are very sensitive to high exhaust gas temperatures because it becomes a roller coaster. This heats up, then that heats up, then that, and eventually you're cooking the valves and you're blowing the turbochargers, and eventually, in some models, actually cooking the top of the pistons and making holes in the top of the pistons. I did all that and I monitored it. The performance of that V8, when you tweak it a bit, and I started with a module map. I did experiment with the exhaust, and whether it made a difference or not, I imagine it probably did, because the V8's trouble was the V8 with a standard exhaust and standard snorkel air intake. It tended to starve itself of air. You would find it at about 3,200, 3,400 RPM. It would just run out of revs because it couldn't breathe. This, it appears, 2.84 cylinder, has the same exhaust pipe, certainly the same diameter exhaust pipe as the V8, but it's pumping out just a little more than half of the exhaust gases than the V8, because it's a little bit more, half the cylinder capacity, but the same. So it's good that they've left the exhaust that size. This, the 2.8, breathes easier than the 4.5 V8. So it revs more freely, it accelerates more freely, and it feels more responsive. You tweak that V8. I put 650 kilograms of wood and drove it around for almost 2 weeks in the back of this. I'm doing some flooring in my home, and I thought, what a great opportunity. Measure the fuel consumption, see what happens, and feel its performance with that weight in the back. I could feel it. The V8, with those tweaks, is I'm sorry, it is a far better performer than this 2.8. I did a little bit of a trip across country, a couple of hours back with the load in the back, and had to get past some trucks, and the 2.8 performed well. It picks up, it's nice to drive, it's more refined than the V8, but it is nothing compared to my slightly modified V8 troop carrier with a full load on it. It's not close to it. That V8 pulled so well. It was a joy. I would squirt it a bit to get past a truck, and before I know it, I would find myself tapping off because I would be exceeding the speed limit without even thinking. This V8 is dead. V8 killer is bullshit. And you might be jumping in right now and saying, yeah, but we can modify the four-cylinder and get even more. No, you cannot. Imagine there's a certain amount of work to be done, and there are a certain number of cylinders doing that work. So with the V8, you have to tweak it and improve its performance not very much to get it much, much better. This is already far more highly tuned than the stock V8 Landcruiser engine, because if it wasn't, the Landcruiser engine would come out of the factory going like stink, but it doesn't. Because it's detuned, it's going to last longer. The tolerances don't need to be as high. This is a highly tuned modern four-cylinder turbo diesel engine, which means it's very, very efficient. It's very good on emissions. It's pretty good on fuel, etc., etc. It's a far more modern engine than the V8. You tweak the V8 a little bit and it goes like stink. You tweak this a little bit and you've already reached the capacity of the engine to be tweaked. A little tweak in a V8 is not going to make any difference to its longevity. None, because it's so detuned to start with. This is highly tuned to start with, where therefore, yes, I've heard some great reports about some mods to this 2.8 and it goes like stink. But then, how long is the engine going to last? Because it's a much, much smaller engine doing far, far more work. You understand what I'm saying? And as far as the noise and the vibration and the feel, the V8 is far nicer than this. Even though this is more refined and more comfortable and nicer to drive in many, many ways, it doesn't give you the fizz, it doesn't give you the buzz. And I say that saying now that I actually think that this four-cylinder motor in a vehicle like a troop carrier, which, let's be very frank, it's a utilitarian, agricultural, commercial vehicle. It's not a luxury four-wheel drive. We do a lot of work on it to try and turn it into a luxury, to have that extra comfort. But the bones, it's a commercial vehicle. It's a van. Just look at the way it's finished. It's a van. I think that this 2.8 will do just fine because my fuel consumption is considerably lower. That 4.5 was not good on fuel. It was heavy on fuel. And I consider myself quite skilled at getting really good fuel consumption out of my vehicles because I've done so many trips where fuel is critical, and I'll be aware and careful. And I will measure my fuel consumption, and I know what works and know what doesn't. The V8, the moment you start being a little bit heavy on that right foot, you're sitting at 14, 15 to 16 litres per 100 kilometres without thinking. If you are very careful, very conscientious and aware, you can get it down to 12. I think my best ever was 11.8 on a long, long run. On a long run on this, fully loading, I'll get 9. 3 litres less per 100 kilometres. I don't think I'll struggle to get 9. I might even be able to get about 8.5 if I'm very conscientious. So this V8 killer talk, it's just hype. And it doesn't help people choose between a V8 and a 4-cylinder. These are two perfectly good engines for two different applications. This is not better than the V8 in many, many things. And it's better than the V8 in many, many things. Right, back to work. Continue cleaning up this mess.